We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
What's up, Cal fans? We're back with another episode of the Golden Bear Cast. The podcast so nice that we figured we'd bring you 2 episodes in the span of 1 week after not giving you any episodes over the last 8 months. You are in the right place. We are a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I am in person in Emeryville with the one and only Rob.
It's been 8 months. You make it sound like we haven't talked in 8 months, but we talk pretty much like every other day. So
It'd be better if it was just an 8-month break.
We were on a break. We were on
a because we didn't say this on the last podcast. We were on a break, which is called parenthood.
One person at parenthood.
One person is deep in Toddlerville, which is a place that I'm not so sure I'd recommend to anybody, let alone my worst enemy. But people tell me it gets better. So we're just going to go ahead and say it gets better from here.
Just going to push through. Just got to push through.
Just got to grind.
Yeah, much like any football season, right? We just got to push through week to week. It's week to week.
That's a great transition because here we are today. Mm-hmm. We are here to talk about the golden era, a.k.a. Hard Knocks Light, a.k.a. the Golden Bear Cast, Ebert and Roper film review.
At the movies.
You know, for the like 10 of you that are going to get that reference.
Yeah. If you're a millennial and you get that reference, you're great. If you're not a millennial, you probably don't get it.
What about a boomer? Definitely get
Definitely boomers. Yeah. But if you're a millennial and you don't get it,
that's okay.
It's okay too, but that just means we watched a lot of TV and you probably didn't. That's probably it.
So Wilcox in this talked about getting better each day. Mm-hmm. And essentially that as long as you got better the following day than the previous one, then that would lead to success. I actually really like that. I think there's a lot of folks that talk about the idea of signing your name at the end of the day. Yep. And it's certainly something that I try to live by from a professional standpoint. And certainly there's days where I will say like, yeah, I don't know if I could totally sign my name on that, but hopefully I sign my name next to more than not. But I like this concept more because it forces you not to just be okay with being the exact same that you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And to set a little bit of context for this, what we're talking about here, for those that didn't pick it up on my random references, is Cal has released a video called The Golden Era. It's about 20 minutes long.
The first episode.
It's a first episode. There's more coming. And the way that we are perceiving it is a little bit more of like your Hard Knocks inside fall camp with the Golden Bears. And so it features Wilcox, both in a personal interview and then also addressing the team, as highlights from Miles Williams and from Craig Woodson. Who am I missing?
Nizia Hunter, and then oh no, not Nizia. It was Josiah Martin.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
the
Josiah
freshman
Martin.
wide receiver.
Yeah. And then I think that was it for now. I'm sure we'll get more players as the episodes progress too.
Yeah, but we had Sermon, we had Blesh from the coaching side. We had strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
So very cool. And the reason why we wanted to talk about this was I felt like a little bit reflective in watching this, and one of the pieces that for me was so interesting, before I'll kick it over to you, Rob, is just listening to the schedule.
Yeah.
Because
that was crazy.
It's been like 15 years since I was like in college, basically. Yikes.
Yikes.
And big yikes. And, so it's like about 15 years since I was with the team for the year as an equipment manager. And I remember fall camp. I remember summer. I mean, there's so much of it that you still remember, but I definitely forgot how hectic it is. And
like the day to day.
Yeah. And the way that Woodson goes through and breaks down every single minute. And during fall camp, I do believe the players are actually taking they take light classes. I believe, I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that they take some form of light classes.
I think it's the newcomers that are taking like orientation classes, and I think the older guys are probably finishing out some of their summer classes as fall camp starts.
Yes. So it's not that like there isn't, I mean, it's not like you're just there to do football, which in my case I was, but even then, yeah, I mean, you are really just, and that was from my lens as an equipment manager. Like, I don't have to do film reviews. I don't have any of those things that occupy my time into the night. So when he's saying, yeah, I have to go do all of these things, and then he's like, when I leave, it's dark out. That wasn't actually my experience. Like, I got to end around like 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And by the time practice is done, laundry is done, like you're kind of on your way. Yeah. The fact that these guys are going, at the break of dawn, and then, you're not done with that till evening, it does really bring to life what fall camp really is, which is a grind. A toddler-like grind.
Yeah, I think that moment definitely stood out, where he's like talking and he's saying, like, we go to meetings, then we go to eat, and then I'm back in the facility for more meetings, and then I go eat, and then I'm back here for more meetings. And like, it's cool because the series, as like Hard Knocks does, we get a look into what the Cal program's interior culture looks like, what it looks like in the building, how people like talk to each other. You see the interactions between the coaches and the players and all of that. And, Wilcox's initial first, like, that speech that he's basically giving, like welcoming everyone in, I think was like spot on. Like that whole AT thing where he's talking about ball security and all that, super cool moment. If you lived through, or if you were here and was a fan during the Tedford years, like everyone remembers the Ron Gould with the punching glove, on a stick, which they brought back, by the way. If you go to fall camp now and watch the running back drills, they did bring back the stick with a punching glove. But yeah, it's cool because a lot of us that cover the team kind of get a glimpse into that when you're like at practice and you get to talk to the players like off the camera and so on, and see how they interact when it's not on the media banner or not on game days. But I think for the average person, getting a look into that and seeing the culture that Wilcox has kind of established here over the last 7 years, and the players particularly, like, because there's a lot of fan favorite players I think on this current roster, and just seeing them on there and talk about the university, talk about the football, talk about the program, it's kind of unique, and it's I think it's great. I think it's great. It's a great way to interact with the fans.
There was I want to go back to the running back moment, because the 5 points of pressure was like, that's the Ron Gould.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounded like AT went to the
Raiders
game, but I mean, yeah, that was Ron Gould all day.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly when Desarte came in as a freshman, one of our coaches saw how big his arms were, and was like, that guy's never going to fumble a football in his life. But yeah, like 5 points of pressure, and that was so big, close to your heart and chin down. Like, I mean, that is such a good thing to preach. And then when they bring out the orange ball, And I actually thought that it wasn't going to be what happened. I thought that they were going to actually distribute a bunch of little tiny orange balls and then be one of those where, like, if somebody stripped it out. Yeah. I was like, oh, that would be so fun. And then, whoever at the end.
Yeah, maintains it.
I mean, Wilcox, if you want that idea.
Yeah, please take it.
Right up your alley.
I mean, that's like reminiscent of like when we were kids and you had to do like the flower baby stuff. Do you remember that? Like in middle school? Do you ever have that? When
you take care of a flower.
Yeah, like you took a bag of flour and then you like dress it up as like a little baby and you'd like carry it around for a week.
What?
It was to teach you about like teen pregnancies and like how much work it is to take care of a child.
You think about that back then, and now all you got to do is listen to this podcast.
Clearly, yeah. Yeah, how far we've come.
Here you go, teen. Listen to this for 10 minutes. Listen to this. This guy's not even that old.
But yeah, I mean all of it is just like super cool moments. And then seeing all the players like mic'd up too, I think that's super cool when they're like, you just see the interactions, you see like before snaps and stuff, you get glimpses of like their call outs and what they're doing, and getting the pre-snap reads properly.
Small plug, I've seen that before with Akalani's through your mic'd up videos. Those are dope. So that was I was used to seeing that, but yeah, it was really cool. I loved seeing that clip with Mendoza. I think it was Martin.
Yeah.
And just like him sort of acknowledging like how much it is to take everything in, and then also just being like, I know what I did wrong there.
Yeah.
I think.
That moment was like twofold. It was like, one, you're talking about Josiah Martin and what he said. But like also it's like Mendoza walking over to his freshman receiver and being like, "Hey, it's all good."
Yeah, exactly.
Like you'll make the change.
Yeah,
like that was cool to see too.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I think
we're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search. Match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Overall, from a culture standpoint, and what you called out with Wilcox, it was one of those things where I remember seeing it at first and was like, damn, we really are, like, this has been a long time. Mm-hmm. They swear way more in this than ever with the media, and I wish they did more.
I was very surprised they let a lot of those like sequences or scenes go.
Yeah.
Like,
there's specifically one with Sermon where he's like...
Sermon did it. I think Wilcox said there was a couple of cuss words in there when the team got into a fight. And like I think we can say it now because it's now on video. But it's like if you go to practice, you hear the coaches swearing all the time.
Oh yeah.
It's like you've been through it too, right? Like you know.
Yeah. Steve Marshall cussed like a Irish sailor. Holy goodness.
I can't remember if it was Angus or...
Angus you'd hear across the entire stadium. That's like Steve Marshall. Very similar to Angus.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Very similar. But yeah, fall camp, I will say the meals are amazing. The food was so good. And I just remember it was like, this is life. Like, all I got to just work and then just eat amazing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah. It's great. But... it's a grind, and then they're staying most of the time, or if you're a freshman, you're staying up in the the
And the
old Harry
dorms,
Potter
yeah.
hall, and you
Yeah.
know it's rough and not big rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an adjustment. But I also think the thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, Rob, was something that you talked about a little bit before we got started, which was like the sheer amount of turnover that has actually taken place in this roster in comparison to pre-NIL era,
Yeah. Or pre-transfer portal era.
pre-transfer portal era,
yeah.
turning over 50 players.
Yeah.
What do you think about, like, that's a monumental shift from football as we know it
Yeah.
6 years ago.
I mean, I think all of us kind of have experienced this like change. Like it, you know, like the change for me that it kind of emulates is like for you and me, it's like that change, that moment when we were growing up where that change from analog to digital happened. And it happened so like easily, but it was like there were a lot of adjustments that needed to be made and like accounted for. And that kind of feels like what happened here, like with the transfer portal. Like it just happened overnight, right? It just, the transfer portal thing was just set up over like a month, and then this is how we're doing college football now and college athletics. And then we all had to adjust to it. And so I think like what you see now with this Cal team and like the 50 or some new guys that are in here, like that's going to be the norm now. I don't think it's going to be like, I think, or let me rephrase. I think if you're a program that's like vying for national championships, right, or you're in that A or S tier of a football program, I think your turnover is going to bound to be a lot less, particularly in the top, like your starters or your two deep. But for teams that are like right under there, like the B and C tier teams, I think a lot of those top tier guys that you have, if you don't like, you know, get enough wins or stuff like that happens, they'll leave and move on to the programs that are higher up. And then you're going to get guys from those higher programs that haven't seen time or aren't getting snaps. They're going to move down into the B and C tier teams because they feel like they can start and get playing time there. And you're going to constantly see that. That's not saying that we can't get up into that S tier, A tier, right? It's just it ultimately comes down to wins and the consistency of wins. But as of right now, like we're in that underneath tier, right? Which is why all of us were so afraid that Jayden was going to hit the transfer portal, right? That's why we lost J Mike. Like, you know, it's things like that. So I'm not saying that's the reason J Mike left, but you know, those types of big name guys are going to bound to leave because we're not in that tier yet. The name brand of the program doesn't keep guys here right now.
It goes both ways to exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
In that you get these former 4 or 5 star guys that are like, well, I mean, the pitch of you can see the field faster here still works.
Yeah.
I think just as well. And then the nice thing, I think the position that Cal is in, which we all know, is that like financially we're pretty well backed.
Yeah.
So we do have a shot of keeping in Jayden Ott. We do have a shot of keeping these like higher level players that want to stick around, but are like, hey, somebody else is offering me X amount of money. Like, I want to make sure that I'm at least getting some sort of compensation here.
Yeah.
And like, to be fair, they're putting their bodies and health on the line. Like, I think to get some level of financial security while you're doing that in college, like there's so many of those guys that were on the team when I was there that I remember it's like 3 torn ACLs and we're just like giving their entire body to this sport and with no NFL future and having to go into whatever career they went into. And now, okay, like you're talking about like not even being able to like play any sports with your kids because your knees are just so messed up from everything you put it through. So it's like, yeah, I'm glad I'm both like grateful and and it's also frustrating. I mean, you can't not possibly, you know, be somewhat frustrated when like your favorite player is coming up and then all of a sudden they're gone because Alabama came calling and they're going to offer them $5 million. Like that is, it does take the joy a bit away from what I think college football is. And then I think this is still evolving. Like it's changed so rapidly that, you know, in 2 years, let alone what's going to happen on the conference front, which we'll talk about in a future podcast. But I think does NIL go to the universities? NCAA has done such a horrible job with so many of these. The funny thing is, like, there's not really another billion-dollar organization that's ever rolled anything out as poorly as any of these things that the NCAA rolled out.
Yeah.
So it is fascinating in the sense of like, there's no corporation that would just launch something called a transfer portal and put like literally barely any regulation around it,
Yep.
guess on some dates and be like, have fun. And then like same thing with the NIL where they just were like, well, we lost our case in the court, so have fun, y'all. It's like, you know, it's kind of unheard of, I think, from my side. Like, you can certainly make the case that there's some companies that have gone out and done something really stupid and fast, but I think to this degree and have that big of an impact to the core business model, I think it's actually a pretty unique case.
You could make the case it's Elon and Twitter.
I mean, easily. Yeah. I was like, somebody out there is like, what about Elon? I was like, yeah, I gotcha. But like,
Yeah.
you know,
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
yeah, the guy just likes to light money on fire. But yeah, I think it's just going to be really fascinating to watch. And then also like to just bring us back home, I think as we wrap this up, you know, stuff like this and what did it mean for this program? Does this mean that most programs are going to do Hard Knocks Light? They can probably afford better video equipment, production value, the production, like all of this feeds into this ultimate brand, which is like your university led by athletics. Mm-hmm. And so seeing Cal do this and as well, and as I think like high class as this came across, you know, does this mean that I would not be surprised if Hard Knocks itself started to try and branch into some form of like college. And like, why not?
Yeah.
Because they're always trying to find something to like, you know, they're doing these like mid-season Hard Knocks and they never get the same viewership. So the thing is with like college football that would be fascinating would be you could really do spring at a time when Hard Knocks doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
So that would be a really natural opportunity to capture some of the same storylines, very much almost like Last Chance U kind of did for a bit. And then you got all the transfer portal madness and the content piece. There's so much here.
Someone's gonna pick it up. Like Netflix has like the quarterbacks and wide receiver stuff, which I think is great, and you know, something like that. But I think for me, just to wrap this up, like I've talked to a bunch of guys, you know, that are around the NIL, that are around the Cal football program, and the thing that keeps being told to me is like there is as you mentioned, there's going to be like a re-snapping of like what we can do and what we can't do. And what Cal and those guys that are in the building are prepping for is when that re-snap happens, all of these guys that are going off to the Ohio States or the Michigans or the Floridas and the LSUs, just because they were offering more money or just because, you know, they're in the SEC or you know, with that like NIL stuff, it's gonna come snapping back in that like, oh, like that wasn't the place for me. Like I was blinded by just like some of the glamour and didn't make the right choice at the time. And then so now I'm gonna come back and find a place like Cal because they realize like the genuineness of how they're running the program
For sure.
at a university like this. So
And it's good why they got rid of the transfer penalty. So
yeah.
I think that makes sense. We're asking 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds to make decisions that are hard and like learn lessons that are hard to learn when you're 25, 26, let alone 30, 31. I mean, the amount of times that somebody comes to you and says, hey, I have a job over here, I will pay you more. somebody takes that role and, oh, hey, it's
Not for me.
terrible over
Yeah.
here. And it wasn't worth $50,000 more to the negative impact on my mental health.
Yeah.
And understanding like how much Gen Z as a generation prioritizes mental well-being.
Yep.
It's going to be fascinating to see that evolve. And I'm glad that we do, as much as once again, it's like frustrating as a fan because the magic's a little bit gone when a player transfers and then transfers and then transfers. Like, it's just not the same. It's like having that homegrown talent all in one place.
Yep.
But it's still better at the end of the day for, I think, like, them to be able to make that decision and get it right, even if they have to get it right the second time.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, maybe we'll come back with another episode of this once the second one drops.
Yeah.
You know, maybe
let us,
and the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth one. Who knows? But
if anybody got our Ebert and Roper joke, then maybe we'll come back and do another one. And if it went over everybody's heads, then we can just
this is a one-off.
you can just say that it was an 89 blitz.
This was a pilot episode. But that's it. That is it from us on the Golden Bear Cast. You can find us on Twitter at Golden Bear Cast, and you find all our written stuff over at writeforcalifornia.com. And if you found us, you know where to listen to us. I think that's it. It's been a while since I've done a sign-off. So, yeah.
Only one thing left to say.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.